All right. Good afternoon to the RHCI board members, Dr. Johnson, Alice, everybody. Thanks for watching this video. My name is Calvin, and I would like to visit the RHCI birth waiting home in the Tikonko chiefdom for about 6 months, from November, December until next May. The reason for that being I studied agriculture intensely in Uganda for 4 months, and I just don't think that my life mission doing international development work is quite done yet. The birth waiting home has the exact same moral principles and goals as I do, and I think that this is just a great fit. But one thing that I've been working on intensely for the birth waiting home is actually a permaculture system. I'll explain what permaculture is in a minute here, but basically I learned about it when I was in Uganda. I met this teacher. She owns a school and 1 acre of land. The school has 360 kids at it and 100 staff members. She feeds them 3 meals a day, because it's a boarding school. She feeds them 3 meals a day on just that 1 acre of land, because it's a perfect, high efficiency permaculture system. They have everything from animal-based proteins to diversified crops to even the byproducts of animals. It blew my mind. So I've spent a lot of time understanding how to get it that efficient, and how to replicate such practices in different countries such as Sierra Leone. So I think that this could be a very beneficial thing for a lot of people, for the birth waiting home as well as the entire chiefdom, Tikonko chiefdom. So in this video I'm going to explain 3 things to you: the definition of permaculture, the elements of design that I need to do in order to make this work there, and then a flow chart of a basic permaculture system. So with that being said, we'll get into the next video and start with the definition. Awesome. So I wrote down a couple of definitions for you guys from a couple of different animal and nature journals, things like that. But basically, to get everyone on the same page, I'm going to explain what permaculture is. So it's essentially a system that's about designing sustainable environments with the focus on how we provide our needs in a way that works with nature's processes and ecology. Every element in a permaculture system only exists as a part of a whole. So there's a ton of inputs and a ton of outputs, and those outputs turn into inputs for a different system, which I will explain more later. Awesome. So obviously permaculture, it encourages the restoration of balance to our environment through the practical application of ecological principles. But with that being said, there's a whole lot of design elements that go into creating an efficient permaculture system, and I've actually broken that down into 5 steps. So the first one is the mainframe design. This is where we're going to get water, access to the land, structures to store animals, to store waste, where the food and byproducts are going to go, etc. Step number 2 is sector analysis. This is looking at things like sun patterns, wind patterns, neighbors and women at the center, and the relationship of animals to them. Flood zones, noise, pollution, views from the road, things like that are just going to make everybody's life a lot easier with a permaculture system. And then zone planning is number 3. Zone planning is a way to consider the energy needs of the components in the system that allow me to place the system in a convenient location. So for example, if we have a well, I'm not going to put the permaculture system 2 miles away from the well, because I'm just carrying water 2 miles a day. So we would put it in relation to the well, in relation to vegetation, things like that. And then 4 is workflows. So basically like an integrated workflow pattern. This will come when I can see the land in Sierra Leone and really map out everything myself. But it's basically a way to take a path of maximum efficiency within the system. So I'll go straight from the chickens to the goats to the manure for both, and then grab the larvae and then feed them to the fish, etc. And then the 5th step is analyzing and connecting components. So this is where we consider the elements that we want to include in terms of food for the animals, where the waste is going to go, etc. So now I'm going to explain to you guys the actual permaculture diagram here. This is a very basic one, nothing like the one I saw in Uganda. There's a whole lot more that goes into it, but this is something simple that you guys can see that we could actually start with pretty quickly in Sierra Leone, I believe. So we'll get into that right now. Okay, now I'm going to try to explain the permaculture system a little bit, just a very basic one. And we'll start with chickens as the example. So chickens, what they're going to do is graze in the fields. They're going to eat weeds, grasses, diseased vegetation, things like that. And then at night, the chickens are going to come back to the coop or the pen, wherever we have them, where they lay eggs every day for us. And then from there, I'm going to collect their feces. I'm going to lay it on a tarp, and then within 72 hours, black soldier flies and common house flies are actually going to lay eggs in the feces. Those eggs will then turn into larvae, which will actually be fed back to the chickens. So after a while, the chickens will become a sustainable closed system in and of themselves, where we don't really need to worry about any food for them. And then they're just going to be giving us byproducts of eggs, which we can either sell for income or give to the women at the birth waiting home. And then if we have fish also, this is kind of cool. So if we have fish, we can also feed the chicken's larvae, not the chicken's larvae, the larvae from the feces to the fish. And then the science that they found in Uganda that really worked for them was every 14 days, they would take 10% of the fish water here and then actually drop it back into the land. So it kind of gives a nitrate solution of water to the crops, so you don't have to use as much fertilizer. So that's a really important part too. And then if we have goats, for example, what the goats are going to do is they're going to eat the vegetation from the land, such as bushes, sticks, trees, whatever it is. And then they are also going to lay feces. They're going to have a pen at night as well, so I can collect their feces on a tarp as well. Then we can do two things with their feces. I'm getting too excited about poop. We can do two things with their feces. We can either incorporate their feces into the chicken, right, and then keep growing more larvae, feed that back to the chickens, or feed that to the fish, or we can take their feces and then put it in a tin box on the ground, just like a little 4 foot by 4 foot tin box. And then in there, we would actually start growing worms. So the reason we couldn't do chicken poop with worms is because chicken poop is too high in salt and really dry, and the worms don't thrive in that environment. But goat poop, pig poop, sheep's, things like that, they have great feces for the growth of worms. So with the worms, we can incorporate them back into the land to aerate the soil, add more organic matter to the soil, things like that. Or we can feed the worms to the fish, which is super cool. And after a while, I want to figure out how to collect worm urine, because worm urine is a natural insecticide, which would be pretty cool. But anyways, you can also feed the worms back to the chickens. So this in and of itself would be a closed system where there's not going to be a lot of inputs that are needed, but they're going to give us a lot of byproducts such as milk, eggs, benefits to land from increased nitrates, worms, things like that. But then we're also just going to be able to teach this system to people in the community, so they can try to practice it themselves, save on inputs, and then maybe get more byproducts every single day consistently from their animals as they eat better and are healthier. So this is a permaculture system. And I hope that you guys learned something. I hope that you guys want to ask questions and maybe see how this could work at the birth waiting home. But I think it could be really great. I think that we could put on demonstrations at the birth waiting home doing tours of the permaculture system. And then that should spark some interest or other creativity in people and how they can do something similar at their house, right? Because like I said in the beginning, I knew a person with 1 acre of land that could feed 460 people a day, 3 meals. And I just want to keep that going and try to do something that can help other people in Sierra Leone.